Hi, my name is Caitlin. Welcome to my course on Drawing 1, Shapes, Proportions, and Perspective. This is a class meant to teach you the basics of drawing and sketching so that you can begin your process of learning whatever art you want to do as your passion or career or hobby. I've been doing art since I was in middle school, so 8 years now. I started out self-taught. I read a lot of books and did a lot of watching of videos like this online, and then I took private professional art lessons all through high school and take in-school classes in college and high school. Needless to say, I think I know a decent amount, and I'm hoping I can help you understand and begin your art journey. Each video lesson is going to have an activity that goes along with it. I recommend that you do the activity so that you're prepared for the Zoom lesson that goes with this course. In the Zoom lesson, we're going to work together to create a final piece using the skills that are taught in these lessons. I will briefly cover them in the Zoom lesson. We'll do a recap, we'll do a review where you guys can ask questions and I can help you out. Also, feel free to email me at any time. It is linked in the description of this video. With questions or pictures of your art, and I can give you feedback. I'm very available if you need me. Feel free to message me on my hobby courses or through my email. I'm pretty diligent about checking my email, so I recommend that. Without further ado, we have today's lesson is going to be on shapes. It's going to be how we use shapes in art, how we identify shapes in art, and how we talk about shapes in art. So here we go. Shape as an element of art. So elements of art is a term we use to talk about things in a work of art that we use as a tool to convey things to an audience. We use these as tools to convey emotions or themes that we want our audience to feel or see or acknowledge in our piece. Artists create art with a message, with a reason. Always. Whether that reason just be an outlet for yourself or for a greater message that you want to convey to the world, there's always a message behind your art, whether or not you think there is. There are 7 elements of art total. We're talking about one of them today, and we'll go over them all briefly in this class. They're just good things to know, and we'll talk about them as we go. The elements of art are line, shape, form, space, texture, value, and color. So those are terms we use to talk about art, and they are what we consider to be tools that we use as artists to convey things in art. In art, we refer to shape as being one of 2 kinds of shape: geometric shapes or organic shapes. And I'll get into that in a second. Geometric shapes are the shapes that you learned in school, in like elementary school, kindergarten, very early on when you were in preschool even, you learned shapes. You learned squares and rectangles and ovals and circles and diamonds. Those are geometric shapes, and we do use those in art. These are shapes that we can measure with a ruler. We can define by looking at them. We know they fit in this category. I'm sure you took geometry. You know a rectangle has 4 sides, 2 sets of parallel sides, 4 right angles. A square is the same thing, but they're all the same length, and we use those terms in art as well to define geometric shapes. So that's what those are. Organic shapes are all the weird shapes and things that we don't have names for. The shape of a flower petal, the shape of, I don't know, I'm trying to think, raindrops, the shapes of snowflakes, where they're all individual and special, and no 2 are exactly alike. Snowflakes is a good analogy here, because no 2 organic shapes are really going to be the same. These are shapes that we use to define things. My art teacher, when I was first taking professional art classes, told me to think about clouds. Clouds are organic shapes. The sidewalk that you're walking on while you're looking up at the clouds is a rectangle. It's a geometric shape. So that's how I tell the difference. Identifying these curves and lines of organic shapes can help us better sketch out and mark out how things look in an image. So it's just about identifying curves and lines and things. how shapes are used. We use shapes in composition and also in form. Composition is how we set up a piece, how we set up the thing we're looking at, whether that be a landscape or a still life or a portrait. The way it is composed or put together is the composition. And you can see that here with the apples on the plate are composed in a triangle shape. We also see them as a form because the form of these apples is round. It is a circular shape. And now apples aren't perfectly circular, and we can identify their organic shape in the way they curve very specifically and taper at the bottom a lot of the time, or are straight around the sides and more round on the top and bottom. The way they dip in at the top. Those are all organic shapes that we can identify when we add detail, but when we're sketching out and laying out our drawing, they are circular. And so we are referring to them as a kind of circle shape. We're going to practice identifying shapes. So we're going to practice identifying organic and non-organic and geometric shapes. In Famous Artworks, I've got 2 examples for you. So if you look at this piece, I want you to think, where are there geometric shapes? What geometric shapes can I identify in this image? And then also think, what organic shapes can I identify in this image? And do your best to try and describe them. I'll give you a minute. Awesome. Okay, go ahead and pause the video if you aren't ready yet, but I'm going to go ahead and show the answers. Oh boy. Okay. Check your work. There's geometric shapes in the stars. The stars are all very round. They're circles. The buildings at the bottom are very rectangular. You can see down here, all these buildings are rectangles and triangles. I've marked them in red for you. It's just a repeating scene of rectangles, and it's the color that makes them look the way they do. And he did that because they're so small that it doesn't need a whole lot of detail to be distinguished. But these swirls in the sky of the starlight, these mountain curves, the way this big, I think it's a mountain, I've also heard it's a tower. The way this tower or mountain curves, though, is an organic shape. It's very, it's like a plant almost, where it curves and flows. But it's also got sharp indents and angles on this lower part. So that's how I would talk about those organic shapes. How about this one? This is another piece that has a lot of shapes in it, and we'll talk about on the next slide, but I want you to go ahead and think about the organic shapes you can identify, how you would describe them, and what geometric shapes you can identify and where they are in the picture. Awesome. Go ahead and pause the video if you aren't ready yet, but I'm going to go ahead and move to the answers. So this is a great example of using geometric shapes to block out basic shapes and then adding detail. All the skirts of the women are based around circles and rectangles, and they have just been added slight curves to create a more human-like shape. This is a very geometric piece, I would say. That being said, we also have shapes in composition. The women sitting forms a triangle shape. We have all these half circles on the umbrella too. I didn't mark those out, but that's good to note. We have this in the background. All these rocks and things are trapezoids. But we also have organic shapes in these branches of this tree over here. These animals form really organic shapes, and we could break them down. If we were going to draw an up-close image of an animal, we would break it down into shapes like a circle for the head and an oval for the body, and then have the legs move. And that would help us start making our geometric shapes. I'm sorry, not our geometric shapes. We would use the geometric shapes to make our organic shapes. The angles of this man laying here are very organic, but he is very rectangular in shape overall, so he's kind of built in a rectangle and then expanded upon. So that's how I would talk about that. This is a great example of what we're going to be doing in the activity. Your activity is cubism practice. Cubism is a style of art popularized by Pablo Picasso. It uses bright colors and a mixture of overlapping geometric and organic shapes to create abstract portraits. Create a portrait of you, a self-portrait, or a picture of your friend, or a celebrity, or you can do an animal. Basically any living subject A subject is what we talk about. When I refer to a subject, I'm talking about the thing that you are creating art of. Whatever the thing that you are drawing is the subject of your art. So your subject has to be something living here. You're going to make a portrait of it. There's two ways you can do this. You can cut up pieces of paper and then try and fit them together like a puzzle, and glue them down to make this thing. You can add lines on top of it to help better define it. Or you can just try and draw in shapes. Basically, I want you to take your picture that you are referencing, and I want you to do your best to break it down into its geometric shapes and organic shapes in the most basic level. So the hair is going to be a big organic shape. The face is going to be an oval. The eyes are going to be, or a rectangle. If you're drawing a man with a really strong jawline, his face might be a rectangle. Basically try and break it down into its shapes. I want you to try and include 3 organic shapes and 5 geometric shapes in your final drawing. And go ahead and feel free to email these to me or send them to me if you want feedback on them. But basically, this is just practice for you. I recommend having a sketchbook if you are going to pursue art at all. It doesn't need to be a big one. I like little, smaller ones actually. Not super small, but like the size of a small planner. If you think about that, like your planner that you write your schedules and stuff in. That's the kind of size I go for. But just try and get sketch paper. That's a big thing. If you go to the art supply store, look for sketch paper. And just any pencil will work, as long as you have a good pencil and a good eraser. It doesn't need to be a special art pencil. I just use No. 2 school pencils, or mechanical pencils are my favorite. I highly recommend getting those things, not only for this class, but for pursuing art in general. You don't need a lot of fancy materials to create art. But those 2 things are going to be a great 3 things if you count, like getting a nice block eraser. And I can recommend one if you want me to, just email me. Those are going to be super beneficial to you, especially if you want to take more courses with me or online or in person to pursue art. I just hope that you're going to need that either way. Here's some examples of cubism. These are all Picasso pieces. And you can see in here, he's broken this down into organic shapes, these really angular organic shapes. We don't have a name for this shape that he's done here in the white, but it is a shape. We would just call it shape in art. These flowing, rounded shapes for the hair. He's got rectangles in the background. He's got these round bean shapes for fingers, these ovals for eyes, that's a geometric shape, and he's added all these details are just shapes. So he's taken a picture and he's broken it down into the shapes. This is a little bit more comprehensible image if you're a little intimidated by the first kind of style. Here's something a little easier. It's a little less bright colorful, but it's still broken down into shapes. He's broken down the angles into straight lines of the face. The eyes are these like almond shape, kind of like pointed ovals, a lemon kind of shape, if you will. He's broken down like this oval at the base of the nose, this rectangle for the long part, these rectangles for his shirt, this curve for his hair. That works. You also have this, which is what it's kind of going to look like if you do the cutout paper method, where it looks collaged together. He's got long rectangles, he's got rounded shapes for noses, he's got this shape over here that looks kind of, I think it's like a beard of a face. This is a band. So like we have this guy with the guitar, he's got a beard, these circles for eyes, this half circle for a hat or hair, rectangle face, there we go again, triangles all along his pants. The point of this exercise is to focus on shape and being able to look at an image and break it down into pieces, because if you can do that, you can draw anything if you have enough patience. So that is my exercise for you today. I hope it is enjoyable for you, and I will see you in the next one.